Testando o áudio. Aparentemente tudo bonitinho. Testando o áudio. Aparentemente.
Enough to get hands on Forza Horizon 5 just a little bit early to see how every game of the game plays on the Xbox Series X. Journey in both the performance and quality modes that are available for next gen console. Games in Mexico ahead of release. The very start of the game does not hold back because we're dropping into the La Gran Calera, one of the beautiful cover cars. Bronco Badlands. And actually we're going to start off in performance mode, which in case you didn't know is actually the 60 FPS mode for Forza Horizon 5, and it looks beautiful. This is kind of the mode that you'd want to choose if you're going to be prioritizing the frame rate. Side by side now we can actually see the quality mode coming in, and this mode you'll notice first off that the frame rate has halved. We're looking at 30 FPS, but the textures, the lighting, the draw distance, everything is ramped up so much more, so you get all that juicy little extra fidelity out of the game. In performance mode, I tend to prefer this for Forza games or for racing games in general, just because I feel like I can make those quicker decisions as they come in, and, you know, seeing corners a little bit earlier, getting more feedback and information into your eyes, quite important in a racing game. However, Forza's also been known to show off some really beautiful vistas in its quality mode, which, you know, sometimes you just want to soak in the sights of Mexico as well. As we're tearing it up in the Badlands, I noticed that it's just such a really, like, I don't know, the word maybe is just very organic feeling to the car itself. I'd already sort of tweaked some of the driving settings and got it just right to how I prefer to play Forza, and it just feels like you've got a real connection with the terrain in both modes. You can really feel the sort of rumbling of the ground underneath. It really just connects with the car so beautifully that it helps you just drive better, which was really awesome. Next up, in this little intro, we're going to be taking it through the Tierra Prospera area of the map. This was actually a really fun car to drive, and you'll see coming up that there's quite a lot of detail difference between the performance mode, which we're in right now, and upcoming the quality mode, especially when you're looking at reflections on the car itself. So right now the reflections, they look pretty good, but it's fair to say that maybe they're a little bit more matted, even though this is a glossy car finish. But once we swap in the quality mode, you can really see that there's just in Forza Horizon 4, we were playing more in a British weather, which, you know, as it doesn't have too much sunlight. But in Mexico, that is a different story. Loads of sunlight, loads of beautiful opportunities to get some great lighting going on. And especially, I noticed, and it happens quite often later on in this little playthrough, when we drive through water, you can really notice the difference between performance and quality mode with the amount of droplets that are hitting the car, how they sort of refract with the light. It's just such a convincing and beautiful effect in quality mode. And in performance mode, obviously, you're prioritizing the frame rate, so you lose a little bit of that detail, but it also looks and plays so nicely. So it is a great trade-off, but it's also going to depend on your play. Coming through and cutting through the sandstorm itself, there's a lot more of that sort of atmospheric density difference between the performance and quality modes. So you'll see slightly less of the trees maybe on the quality mode because the sandstorm itself is being rendered at a bit more of an intense and a sort of higher and demanding graphical fidelity. Now we're dropping in with a very cool car, the Porsche 911 Desert Flyer. This part of the playthrough itself was really fun, actually. It's just fun to just swing this massive car around, really dig into the dirt and just get a few bumpy rides in as well. But yeah, the La Selva area, I think a lot of people are going to have a lot of fun here and find some really cool beauty spots to take photos of. because look at it, it's just so lush, it's so beautiful. Even in the sort of performance mode, you can see so much foliage there. It's really dense. It's definitely the densest foliage I've ever seen in a racing game. But as you move over to quality mode, the lighting is for me the biggest difference, and especially those water droplets. If you look at the back view mirror of the car, you can see as we're going through, there is just a bit more sort of light passing through it. There's a bit more detail inside the car itself. It's really impressive. Right there, you can see just the sort of the water splashes on the back, as well as the reflections. If you notice any trees that sort of pop by as we're in quality mode, you're really seeing the sort of shadows, the lighting, the reflections are just a little bit more highly fidelity rendered than they are in performance mode. It's really, really cool. That being said, performance mode is no slouch. The game itself looks beautiful. It runs at such a really good frame rate. And all in all, it was just a lot of fun. Another chance to see the sort of water splashes in quality mode right there versus performance mode. It's just such a pleasing effect. And although obviously we are losing some of the frame rate in quality mode, I have to say that the motion blur that had been applied onto it is actually really, really convincing. It's just the right amount of motion blur to help sort of, link those frames together and give it as smooth an effect as possible. And it's not too much motion blur that you lose the detail in the world itself. So obviously with a quality mode, you're going to see higher rendering detail, but sometimes you can feel like that might be lost because of lack of frame rate, but the motion blur really does stitch it all together really nicely, and it's just a beautiful effect. As we come into our fourth and final car of this little playthrough, this is another cover car actually. There's two cover cars this year, interestingly enough, and this one is definitely going to excite people. This is the Mercedes AMG 1. This is a very fun car to drive, and we're going to be tearing it up all the way to the festival itself, and the engine on it is just beautiful. I believe it's an all-electric car. I might be wrong on that, but even so, the engine on it sounds so good. Again, starting it off in performance mode, which when you're racing at high speeds, I feel like performance mode is the smart choice to make. However, like I said before, you're going to want to choose quality mode when you're just itching to see some beautiful views. That being said, we've got a great view for the first time of the sky itself, which is rendered in such high detail. Honestly, I couldn't tell the difference between this sky and a real sky. They just look the exact same to me. In both modes, the sky is just awesome. Again, what you're probably noticing here on this side-by-side is a lot of the shadow detail is somewhat lost in performance mode because of that trade-off to get a higher frame rate. But obviously, when you're looking for more frames, you're not going to mind so much if you're missing a bit of shadows. However, in quality mode, the shadows are super deep. They're super detailed as well. There's less pixelation. They're rendered in a higher detail, so you can see the shadow underneath the car, the shadow underneath the trees, the shadow underneath even the lampposts themselves, and the planes that just flew by are just that much more crisp. Less pixelation on them, less aliasing, but it's all part of that trade-off. If you want to get higher fidelity, you do have to lose a bit of the frame rate here. But in either case, it's just a beautiful view of Mexico, and all I knew is that after this, I could not wait to tear it up in a bit of free roam just to see what the rest of the map looked like, because from this little snapshot of these 4 areas, I just knew this was definitely going to be the most beautiful Forza Horizon 5 game. It's so beautiful. And here we come in for the final beauty shot in the Mercedes AMG 1. Guys, thank you so much for watching. This has been a lot of fun to chat to you guys about between the differences of performance mode, quality mode on Forza Horizon 5. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye!
There are not many car games in recent history that have broken the barrier from good car game to just plain good game. See, driving games, like sports games, are often sectioned off by the majority of the video game community into their own niche. But every once in a while, a racing game is good enough to reach out and grasp the appeal of gamers as a whole, and in 2018, Forza Horizon 4 just may have achieved the goals set by Playground Games more than 10 years earlier, to turn car lovers into gamers and gamers into car lovers. But as is often the case, you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become a villain. And now, after 3 years of hindsight, I am here to finally give my review of Forza Horizon 4. Now, although I don't want to linger on a history of the Horizon series itself, I already did that in a different video, I think it's important to set the stage for where the community was in the months leading up to the September 20 release of Horizon 4. Forza has always been an established name in the gaming world, since the early 2000s anyway, and with the creation of the took a few years to find its own and mature. Full of motorsport fans, and although it reviewed well and was in all terms a success, our audience, and was often compared against more established open world greats of the time, like Need for Speed. This started to change in Horizon 2, where the festival found its footings and was able to really start flexing its potential and finding the style it would more or less retain for every release. 3, though, that started opening the cracks into the wider gaming world. The PC release brought in a massive untapped player base that was tired of bad Need for Speed ports and obscure simulators and itching for a proper AAA open-world racing game. Horizon 3 delivered this incredibly well, achieving massive commercial success on console and PC, and setting the example that racing games could be more than just good racing games. They could flat out be good games. And this was in large part because the focus in Horizon isn't just about the racing. It's about collecting, exploration and discovery, hunting leaderboards, stunt driving, and in all, just enjoying a big car playground. This automotive playground theme was solidified during Horizon 3's Hot Wheels expansion. The buzz was already out. Non-racing game players were starting to hear that Forza Horizon was a good game, and maybe even fun if cars weren't really your thing. But to the general gaming public, Forza had spent a decade establishing itself as the serious simulation car franchise for die-hard car people, and that was a tough reputation to shift, but it was done expertly with the Hot Wheels expansion, essentially waving a massive flag to the gaming world as a whole that Forza wasn't just a racing sim anymore, it could let loose and be fun for the sake of fun. So the Forza name had successfully evolved its reputation into 2 parts, kind of like a mullet, motorsport in the front, Horizon in the back. The Horizon word was out. People were hearing about Horizon 3 and its Hot Wheels expansion, but it was the last expansion in an already aging game, so everyone was primed and waiting for a new release. And in the summer of 2018, during Xbox's E3 presentation, Horizon 4 was announced. Building off the success of its predecessor, Horizon 4 hype was high. Major news outlets covered its release like they would any other AAA game. And the fact that Horizon was now on Game Pass, console, and PC meant that if you wanted a taste of the festival, you could get it. Alright, so here's the point of all this intro. I think it's important to know, when diving into this review, that Horizon 4 was gearing up to be the biggest Forza game. Well, honestly, the biggest car game in a decade, at least. And it had some big expectations to fulfill. With that, let's get into the review proper, and we're going to split it up into a few different sections here, starting with the campaign. Now, the Horizon 4 vets among you might be thinking to yourself, wait, what campaign? And yeah, that's kind of what I want to talk about. What campaign? Let's bring it back to Horizon 1, which pretty much immediately when starting your career introduces you to an important character, your nemesis throughout the rest of the game, Darius Flint. Then you meet a supporting cast, Alice, Dak, and the other drivers you'll be competing against. They all have real personalities, and some get some really cool intros. And then you get set up with the premise of the Horizon Festival and your goals within it. So right away, you've got a memorable supporting cast, you know your place in the game world, and your goals. Horizon 1 continues this throughout the whole game, giving you an immersive feeling that you're in a world that exists without you. These characters keep living when you turn off the game. And now the Horizon 4 intro. Keep in mind, I've played hundreds if not thousands of hours of this. Her? I no idea what her name is. Kylie, I think? Her? No idea. I don't even think you see her again or hear her again in the game. I don't even know any of these characters. They're so unmemorable. As I'm sitting here writing this script, I was able to name all of those Horizon 1 characters by memory immediately. I haven't played Horizon 1 in almost 2 years. I played Horizon 4 this morning, and honestly, I don't think I could tell you the name of a single character. Like, I'm thinking about it right now, not one name comes up. In Horizon 4, the characters you see and hear throughout the game feel less like actual characters and more like theme park ride operators, delivering their rehearsed lines, explaining the situation while you sit there waiting for the fun part to begin. And it's kind of fitting because Horizon 4 is a theme park, and I don't think that's unintentional or even necessarily bad in its own way. Horizon 4 isn't even the first game of the franchise to feel like this. To be honest, story has taken a limousine-sized backseat since Horizon 2. Horizon 4's world turns on when you enter it. The NPC characters